Hi everyone, Elijah here with very fine 1960s wood paneling behind me, and I'm very excited to be sharing with you how I study Chinese pod. I'm going to make a series of screencasts, each one for a different level, because when you're studying Chinese pod, each level requires a different approach, and even within a level, you need to change your approach from the time you start to the time you finish that level. So let's begin with Newbie. My normal study routine when I first began this level involved first listening to the full lesson, listening to Ken and Jenny talk about the lesson. Next, use the dialogue tab, listen and repeat until fluent. Very important to just be training your mouth to get used to saying these sounds. Use the vocabulary tab as needed. I don't believe you should hang out there too long if you don't need to. Next, I would listen to the expansion sentences. I would use it as a listening exercise, cover up the text, listen to the audio, see if I could understand it, and then go back and look and see how right I was. Next, do the exercises. And then here's an important part. For the newbie level, I would memorize every dialogue, and not just memorize them, but impersonate them. Then, lesson review MP3. Listen to that and speak the words out loud. Try to speak the sentences out loud as well. And then, perhaps most importantly, I would add the dialogue MP3 to my daily review playlist. And I'll show all of that to you right here. So here's the lesson we're looking at today. Now you first see the comments section, and at that time, I'm very active now on ChinesePod, but up until recently, I almost never made any comments at all. But here you've got the full lesson. You can listen to it here. You could listen to the dialogue, and you could listen to the vocabulary review. So what I would first do is listen to the full lesson, but I would typically do that in iTunes. I have a separate video showing how I would download all of these into iTunes so that you can have them nicely arranged here for you like this. I've got my hot soup lesson here, the dialogue, lesson review, and the actual lesson itself. So I'd often listen to it in iTunes.
Hello, we're ChinesePod coming to you from Shanghai. I'm Jenny.
I'm John.
John.
So I'd first listen to that entire full lesson, and then what would I do next? Let's go look. After listening to the full lesson, I would use the dialogue tab to listen and repeat until fluent. So that means I would come to the dialogue tab. I would turn off the English and the pinyin, and I would just focus on listening to the sounds.
妈妈，我要喝汤。
Now you'll notice that when you listen to the dialogue itself, it's pretty fast. It's supposed to be. Here is where they slow it down, and you can listen very carefully.
妈妈，我要喝汤。
And if I'm not comfortable with all the words, I come over to the vocabulary. Yeah. Yao is there.
要
Yao.
喝
He.
汤。
Tong. Maybe tong is the word I wasn't comfortable with.
汤
Tong. Might need to do that a few times, jump back to the dialogue, and I would jump back and forth between these two all the time.
妈妈，我要喝汤。
Mama, 我要喝汤.
妈妈，我要喝汤。
And I would keep doing it until I was confident that I could say it along with the recording and get all the tones right.
妈妈，
我要喝汤.
汤。
Okay, I think I did it. And then I would move on to the next one.
好的，小心烫。
好的，小心烫。好的，小心烫。
烫。
And then I would go all the way down.
太烫了，
太烫了，
小心点儿。
小心点儿. Then I would go back and I would actually do it again until I had it memorized so that I could actually quote each line one by one without looking. Vocabulary tab, again there to help you. Next, expansion sentences. What I would often do is take a piece of paper and actually cover up this side of the screen so I couldn't see any of this. And then I would just play them one at a time. But when I'm starting out, I'm just looking for that one word I just learned. For this, it's yao. I just picked up the word yao. So I'm trying to listen to each of these sentences and pick out the word yao. If I do it, great. I did it. And then I would, of course, then go back and look over them all again. Look at the transcript here on the left and try to understand the sentence. But if I didn't, no big deal. These are just extras when you're at the beginning of this level. Then, of course, do the exercises, do the matching, arrange the sentences, do the dictation, and then figure out the multiple choice. Now, these multiple choice questions, in case you haven't noticed, some students come here and they're like really frustrated because these are super, super hard. Well, guess what? Every single one of them is taken from these expansion sentences. So if you find that difficult, just flip back and forth between these two tabs, expansion, exercises, because not only are these taken from the expansion sentences, the dictation is too. Now, the expansion sentences are very important. The way ChinesePod was set up is that these expansion sentences are actually how you track your progress. There used to be a listening test that was taken just from these expansion sentences, and it would place you in the ChinesePod system based on how well you were able to hear and understand these expansion sentences. Okay, so we have used the dialogue tab, vocabulary tab, expansion sentences tab, exercises tab, and now I go back and memorize and impersonate the dialogue. And for that, I really need this.
妈妈，我要喝汤。
好的，小心烫。
啊，太烫了！
小心点儿。
And you can set it on repeat in iTunes.
我要喝汤。
You can look at the number of plays. I've listened to this dialogue file. It's 87. It's actually a bit lower than I would have expected. Most of the Newbie dialogue files I listened to, they went over 100 times played. So what I'm trying to do here is actually memorize this full dialogue so that I can not just say it, I can actually impersonate it. Because this is really, really, really why I love ChinesePod, these dialogues. Let's listen again, and I'll explain why.
ChinesePod.com
妈妈，我要喝汤。
好的，小心烫。
啊，太烫了！
小心点儿。
What for me makes ChinesePod totally different from all other Chinese language learning resources, and most of them stink, quite honestly, is that they don't get the fact that language is not just about thought, it's about feeling. People say what they say, not just because they think something. They say what they say because they feel a certain way. And it's just as true in Chinese as it is in English. And unless you get that, you never make it. So here in this dialogue recording, you can hear the child saying, Mama, 我要喝汤. You can hear the excitement in the child's voice. The child is saying, I want soup. I want to drink it. I'm thirsty, hungry. I love the taste. I want it. And you can hear in the mom's voice the love and the tenderness, telling the child, 好的，小心烫. She's wanting to warn her child, be careful. She knows the child could get burned. She's warning her. And what does the child say? Ah, 太烫了. It's too hot. You can hear the pain in the child's voice as she's complaining of it being too hot because she got hurt. And what does the mom say? 小心点儿. You can hear there's distress in her voice that the child got hurt, but there's also frustration. I told you, be careful. You should listen. You can hear the frustration. You can hear the excitement. You can hear the tenderness. You can hear the hurt. And you can hear the frustration all in this one simple Newbie dialogue. You don't have to get to advanced lessons to feel the emotion of Chinese. Now, next, what did I do? the lesson review MP3. That's really important to drill down the vocabulary words.
The Chinese Pod Fix.
First, the vocab.
To want.
要
要
要
To drink.
喝
喝
喝. And I do believe it's important to say these words out loud. And you're not just listening to the recording, you're listening to yourself. You're checking your pronunciation. Most of all, you're checking your tones. For me, and for almost all of my classmates, actually I think I can say all of my Western classmates, we felt that tones were the hardest part of Chinese. The tones made the characters seem easy by comparison. Getting those tones right, hearing the tones correctly, combining the tones correctly in sentences. Wow, that was for us absolutely the hardest part of Chinese. And that is another reason I love ChinesePod, because after I've done the lesson review MP3, what do? I add it to my daily review playlist. What does that mean? That means I've got this daily review playlist here. Look, I've got each one 3 times in a row. So let's say I just did, how do you take your coffee? Did I'm hot, really good food. And now I am doing hot soup. So I take this, I add it to the daily review 1, 2 times. It's going to ask me, are you sure you want to add it another time? Add. When I first did this in 2007, 2008, it didn't stop you and ask you that. You could just drop it right in. But now every single time you've got to hit add. So daily review. This is not long. I would listen to this on my earbuds every morning on my 30-minute walk to school. Right now I'm reviewing 4 lessons, 3 times each. How long is it? Look at the bottom of the screen. 4 minutes. That's all it takes. And for me, it made all the difference in the world. Why? I wasn't just listening to the words, although that was important. I was really listening to the tones. That was really important. But more than that, like I said earlier, it's the emotions. I'm listening to the emotions. I'm trying to feel these dialogues. It's not enough for it to just be in my head. In order to really master Chinese, it has to get down into your heart. And again, you should not wait until you're a more advanced student. It needs to be happening at the newbie level, where you are actually experiencing emotional communication with Chinese. For most of us Western students, Chinese is so alien to us that it almost does not seem like a language. Like, I felt like my brain was being rewired during my first year. I had to rethink what even is a word. What are these tones? And it almost seemed like this is not a language. This is not real communication. These kinds of dialogues, those are what really turned it around for me. Without these, honestly, I don't think I ever would have mastered Chinese. I would have given up. So, I've listened to the full dialogue. I've gone through all the tabs. I've memorized and impersonated the dialogue, trying to communicate and feel the emotions. I've done the lesson review MP3, and I'll do it over and over during the coming days. And then, most importantly, I added that daily review. I've added the dialogue to the daily review playlist. Listen to it every day. And what would I do when it got longer? Well, this got longer and longer and longer. Once it got to the point where I wasn't able to finish it on my morning walk, I went up to the top. I would go up to the top and start deleting these to keep it at around 30 minutes so that I could listen to all of them on my walk. And it ended up being that the play count usually reached about 100 when I took them off. Now, we need to get into the question of how many lessons do you need to do? How many newbie lessons do you need to do? If you go to the ChinesePod website, it recommends 50 newbie lessons. For me, that wasn't enough. For some of my smarter classmates, I'll bet that was too much. But there's a concept that you really need to grasp in order to really use ChinesePod way. This is critical for using ChinesePod. As you proceed through a level, your expectations should change. The level is designed, if it's a good lesson, and it is designed to be exactly of equal difficulty with all of the other newbie lessons. So as you do more and more, your expectations should change. When you first start, your expectations should be very low. These are going to be very, very hard. When I first started newbie, I was overwhelmed with how difficult it was. But as I proceeded, it got easier and easier. And so I was able to raise my expectations for myself. So as your expectations raise, you should also change your routine. So this is kind of how it looked for me. The newbie lesson level for Elijah. This is not exact. I'm trying to remember what I did 10 years ago. Basically, it was like this. Lessons 1 through 25, I did one lesson every 2 days. More than that was overwhelming. But then, lesson 26, I noticed it was a lot easier. So I was starting to do one lesson a day. And then once I got to 50, I was like, well, I'm not learning anything more from Ken and Jenny anymore. Listening 1 through 25, it was all so new. After 25 to about 50, I was learning a few new things, but not a lot. But I noticed by the time I did about 50, I was not learning anything new from them. And I wondered, why am I listening to them? But I wasn't ready for elementary. So here's what I did. I did another 50 lessons, but I was doing 3 of them a day without listening to the full lesson. I would just go straight to that dialogue. I would go through those tabs, do the exercises. I would put the dialogue 3 times in my dialogue review, listen to it 100 times on my walk to school, just solidifying the words and how they work together. I was very rarely learning new words, but I was learning new ways they could be put together, new emotions that could be communicated with these words, and it was getting me ready for elementary, which is what I will cover next. So thank you for joining me in my first screencast on How I Study Chinese Pod, the newbie level.